My name is Nicole Young. I'm 32 years old, an architect in Seattle. 6 months ago, my entire family relationship shattered in less than 10 seconds, right along with the glass face of my grandfather's Omega watch. It happened at my dad's birthday party. My mom, Susan Young, has always been obsessed with appearances. If a party starts at 6 p.m., we must arrive before 5. Being late, she says, makes people gossip, makes us look careless, makes the family lose face. So I arrived at 4:30 that afternoon. Melissa, my older sister, was already there with her son Tyler. She was slicing fruit in the kitchen, while Tyler ran around the house like he owned it. "Nicole, you're late," my mom said immediately when she saw me. "It's 4:30, Mom." She glanced at the clock anyway. She always does that. Dad was outside grilling. He smiled when he saw me. "You're here. Help me flip these." He's always been gentle, quiet, a man who slowly shrank inside his own marriage. For 45 years, he's deferred to my mother on everything. What to buy, what to say, even what to think. Once, years ago, he almost defended me when Mom openly favored Melissa. But Mom gave him a look, and he fell silent. That's my father. By 5:30, the house filled with relatives and neighbors. Laughter, red wine, compliments about my recent Vancouver resort project. Uncle Robert patted my shoulder. "I hear you're designing luxury resorts now. Frank, you've got yourself a successful daughter." Dad smiled weakly. Mom changed the subject immediately. She never lets praise linger on me too long. Because Melissa doesn't like comparisons. After Dad blew out his candles, Tyler approached me. "Aunt Nicole, can I see your watch? It's beautiful." I hesitated. The Omega Speedmaster. Grandpa gave it to me in the hospital 1 month before he died of cancer, 8 years ago. "Be careful," I said softly as I placed it in his palm. "It's very special to me." Tyler turned it under the light, studying it. Then he placed it on the table near the cake. I noticed something strange. Melissa nodded slightly at him. Just a small nod. I didn't understand it then. Aunt Martha started telling a loud joke. Everyone laughed, even me. That's when it happened. A sharp metallic crack split the room. The laughter died instantly. I turned. Tyler stood there, holding a hammer. Under it, my watch. The glass was completely shattered. The case dented. Time destroyed. The room fell silent. And then Tyler looked straight into my eyes and said calmly, "So Mom was right. It's just a fake. If it were real, it wouldn't break that easily." I felt heat explode through my body. "Tyler, what did you just do?" Before I could move, Mom rushed between us. "He's just a child, Nicole. Why are you yelling at him?" Melissa stepped forward, shielding her son. "What are you going to do? Threaten a 12-year-old?" My hands were shaking as I picked up the broken pieces. Each shard felt like a piece of my grandfather's last memory. Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. "It's just a watch." That broke me more than the glass did. I looked up at him, my voice trembling. "It was Grandpa's last gift before he died. Don't you remember?" He avoided my eyes. Melissa crossed her arms. "If you cared so much, maybe you shouldn't have handed it to a child." I stared at her. This wasn't an accident. I felt it in my bones. Guests started leaving awkwardly. I saw Tyler smiling faintly behind my mother's back. That smile chilled me. After the last guest left, Mom exploded. "You ruined your father's birthday over a watch." "I ruined it," I said quietly. "Or did you?" She stepped closer. "You've been selfish ever since you refused to lend Melissa money." That's when it clicked. This was revenge. A week ago, Melissa asked me for $150,000 for a house down payment. I said no, not because I couldn't afford it, but because 6 years ago, I lent her $20,000 she never repaid. And for 4 years, I let her live rent-free in the small house I bought, and paid $500 a month for Tyler's tuition. No thank you. No gratitude. Just expectation. I pulled out my phone. If Tyler doesn't tell the truth, I'm calling the police. That watch is worth over $10,000. Mom gasped. "You wouldn't dare!" Tyler started crying, and then he broke. When Aunt Nicole was outside, Mom told me it was fake. She said if I smashed it, she'd buy me a gaming console. The room froze. Melissa's face turned pale. I felt something inside me die. "You used your own son," I whispered. Dad looked at Melissa with disappointment, for once. But it was too late. I took my jacket and walked toward the door. "Nicole, wait," Dad said weakly. I turned. "You call this family?" No one answered. I left. That night, I placed the broken Omega pieces under the light in my living room. The glass was destroyed, but the case still intact, just scratched, like me. And that was the moment I decided something else. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to draw a line. The next morning, I scheduled an appointment with an attorney. The next morning, I sat in a glass-walled office overlooking downtown Seattle, staring at a folder like it was a coffin. Attorney Margaret Peterson adjusted her metal-framed glasses and flipped through my documents with calm, practiced hands. "This house," she said, tapping a page, "is solely in your name." I nodded. My throat felt tight. "I let my sister live there for 4 years," I said. "Rent-free. I paid my nephew's tuition. And she still—" I couldn't finish the sentence without seeing the hammer. Margaret's eyes didn't soften, but her voice did. "You have every legal right to ask them to leave." My fingers curled into my palm. "I don't want to ruin Tyler's life." "You're not," she said carefully. "You're ending a pattern." That word landed hard. Pattern. Because that's what my family was. A loop of guilt, manipulation, and my mother's shrill voice telling me what a good daughter was supposed to sacrifice. Margaret slid a paper toward me. "I can prepare an eviction notice today. 30 days, legal and clean." I stared at the blank signature line. Somewhere in my chest, something that had been trained to obey my mother whispered, "Don't do it. You'll be the villain." But I saw Tyler's smile after he shattered my grandfather's watch. I remembered Melissa's nod, and I signed. Then I swallowed and added the second decision, the one that made my hand shake even more. "I want to cancel the tuition transfers," I said. Margaret paused. "You're sure?" "I've been sending $500 a month directly to their account. Melissa uses Tyler like a leash. If I keep paying her, I'm teaching him this works." Margaret nodded once. "Prepare for backlash." I thought I was prepared. I was wrong. 2 days after the notice was delivered, my phone became a war zone. 30 missed calls from Melissa. Dozens of messages. Melissa, "You can't do this to us." Melissa, "Tyler is crying." Melissa, "How can you be so cruel?" Melissa, "After everything I've been through?" Melissa, "You're a monster." I didn't respond. I couldn't. If I replied once, it would become a conversation, then a negotiation, then I'd be trapped again. That afternoon, I dragged myself home after a long meeting at work, my mind numb, my shoulder aching from stress. The doorbell rang. Once. Twice. Then again, rapid, furious, like someone was trying to punch their way into my life. I checked the security camera. Melissa stood on my porch, Tyler behind her. His eyes were down, his shoulders slumped, like he'd been made to wear guilt as a backpack. I opened the door, but I didn't step aside. Melissa's eyes were swollen and red. "Nicole," she choked, "please, you can't do this. We're your family." Her voice sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced the right pitch of tragedy. Tyler didn't speak. I looked at him, and my stomach twisted. He was 12. He shouldn't be standing here like a messenger in a war he didn't understand. "I'm not discussing this here," I said. Melissa's lips trembled. "Where will we go? The rent is insane. Tyler will have to change schools. He'll lose his friends. You want that on your conscience?" There it was. The hook. The conscience word. The mother word. The guilt word. "I've helped you for 4 years," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You repaid me by teaching your son to destroy something priceless." Melissa's tears stopped like someone shut off a faucet. Her face hardened. "So that's what this is," she hissed. "Revenge." I didn't answer. Because yes, it was consequences. And she hated consequences. She took one step forward, trying to push past me. I didn't move. "This is my home," I said coldly. "If you enter without permission, I will call the police." For a second, her eyes flashed with something ugly, rage and disbelief, like I'd slapped her. Then she exploded. "You think you're better than me because you make money? You're just a cold, selfish—" "Mom," Tyler whispered, barely audible. Melissa snapped her head at him. "Don't!" she spat, like his weakness embarrassed her. Tyler flinched. That flinch did something to me. It reminded me of my father, how he flinched when my mother raised her voice, how he became smaller, how silence became survival. Melissa leaned closer, her voice dropping into a poisonous whisper. "You're going to regret this, I swear to you." Then she grabbed Tyler's wrist and yanked him down the steps. Tyler looked back once. His eyes were full of something I couldn't stand to name. Not just sadness. Hatred. Like I was the one who held the hammer. When they disappeared down the driveway, I closed the door and slid the deadbolt with shaking hands. I stood there in the quiet, my heart pounding like it wanted to escape my ribs. I told myself it would stop there. Then the next morning, at exactly 6 a.m., the doorbell screamed again. I hadn't even had coffee. I opened the camera feed. Melissa was back. But this time she brought reinforcements. My mom stood front and center like a general about to declare war. My dad hovered behind her, looking older than he had 2 days ago. And Melissa stood to the side, arms folded, wearing a small, triumphant smile. I opened the door. The cold morning air hit my face, but it wasn't as cold as my mother's eyes. "What the hell are you doing?" she snapped. "How can you be so cruel to your sister and that child?" I didn't invite them in. I didn't even step aside. Mom took that as an insult. "You've always been selfish," she continued. "Always thinking about yourself. Melissa is a single mother. Tyler has no father. They are disadvantaged. We have to help them." Disadvantaged. That word again. like it was a free pass. Melissa lifted her chin. I can't believe you'd throw us out over a watch. My jaw tightened. Over a watch? I repeated. You mean over the last gift Grandpa gave me before he died? Mom scoffed. It's an object, Nicole. Family comes first. I stared at her. Family. The word she used like a chain. Then Mom turned sharply toward Dad as if pulling a lever. Frank, she demanded. Say something. Tell her she's wrong. Dad's eyes flicked to mine. For a moment, just a moment, he looked like he might finally be a father. He cleared his throat. I think Nicole is right, he said quietly. Melissa and Tyler should learn to stand on their own. We can't keep... Mom's face turned red. You're taking her side? She hissed, voice rising. Melissa is your daughter. Dad's shoulders sagged. I watched it happen in real time. The collapse. The retreat. He looked down. Then he looked up again, and his voice was weaker. Your mother is right, he muttered. Nicole, you should help your sister. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, just a clean, silent break. Like glass. Melissa's smile widened. See, she said sweetly, even Dad agrees you're wrong. A neighbor's door across the street cracked open. Someone peeked out. My mother didn't care. She never cared when she was winning. The argument spiraled, voices rising. My mother accusing me of being heartless, Melissa playing the victim, my dad standing there like a shadow. And then I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and I dialed. My mother's eyes widened. What are you doing? I'm reporting harassment at my private residence, I said, loud enough for the neighbor to hear. My mother gasped like I'd stabbed her. You're calling the police on me? She shrieked. Go ahead, arrest your own mother, the woman who gave birth to you. My fingers didn't tremble. Not anymore. Because right then I realized something. They weren't here to talk. They were here to break me back into shape. 15 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, one male, one female, calm faces, steady posture. The male officer approached. What seems to be the problem? My mom jumped in instantly, voice dripping with innocence. This is a family misunderstanding. She's being dramatic. Melissa nodded, wiping fake tears. She's just upset and overreacting. I held up my documents. Proof of ownership. Proof of notice. Proof that I wasn't crazy. They refuse to leave, I said evenly. They're yelling, disturbing the neighborhood, and they're trespassing. The female officer looked directly at my mother. Ma'am, she said firmly, if the homeowner asks you to leave, you must leave. My mom's mouth opened and closed, like she couldn't believe the world had laws that didn't revolve around her. But I'm her mother, she insisted. That's my daughter. The officer didn't blink. That doesn't change property rights. My dad stood behind them all, eyes fixed on the pavement. He didn't defend me. He didn't defend Mom. He just disappeared. After a final warning, my mother stormed away. Melissa shot me one last look, pure venom. You'll regret this, she whispered as she passed. Then they drove off. The patrol car followed, and the street went quiet again. But my phone? My phone turned into a battlefield within hours. Aunt Jane, Uncle Bob, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, texts calling me cruel, calls demanding I apologize. My mother and Melissa had already spread their version of the story, one where I was a rich, heartless daughter throwing a helpless single mom onto the street over a watch. I stared at the screen, watching names light up like sirens. Then I did the only thing that let me breathe. I started blocking. One number, then another, then another. By the end of the week, I'd blocked more than a dozen relatives. Not because I didn't love family, but because I finally understood something my grandfather tried to teach me with that watch. Time is precious, and I wasn't going to waste mine being bled dry. 30 days passed, then 31, then 32. Melissa didn't move out. Instead, she changed the locks. That was her final insult, her final dare. So I called Margaret Peterson again, and she said the words that made my stomach drop. Then we take it to court. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and quiet judgment. Melissa stood on the opposite side, dressed in soft colors like she was auditioning for sympathy. She didn't look at me when I walked in, but I could feel the hostility radiating off her like heat. Tyler wasn't there. That somehow hurt more. The judge was an older woman with silver hair pulled tightly back, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She flipped through the documents Margaret had submitted. Proof of ownership, bank transfers, the rent-free agreement Melissa had signed 4 years ago. Melissa's lawyer stood and began. Your Honor, my client is a struggling single mother who has been subjected to emotional and financial abuse by her younger sister. I almost laughed. Abuse? Margaret rose immediately. Calm. Controlled. Your Honor, my client has provided housing and financial support for 4 years. There is no evidence of abuse, only a legal request to reclaim her property. The judge looked directly at Melissa. Mrs. Young, did you sign this agreement acknowledging the home belongs to your sister?
Melissa swallowed. Yes, but
Did she charge you rent?
no.
Did she provide financial support for your son?
Melissa hesitated.
Yes. The judge's expression hardened slightly. I see no evidence of domestic violence. I see generosity extended for years. Ms. Nicole Young has the right to terminate that arrangement. Melissa's eyes flashed toward me, pure fury. The ruling was clear. 3 days to vacate. If she refused, law enforcement would enforce the eviction. As we exited the courtroom, Melissa brushed past me and whispered, "You'll regret this for the rest of your life." I didn't answer, because regret had already lived in my house for 4 years. 3 days later, at exactly 10 a.m., 2 officers arrived at the property. My parents were already there, helping Melissa move boxes into the back of her old Honda Civic. My mother refused to look at me. My father looked like he hadn't slept. Tyler stood beside the porch, arms crossed, jaw tight. He looked older, harder. When he saw me, his eyes darkened. "You're the worst person in the world," he muttered. Each word struck deeper than his mother's insults ever could. "You're taking away our home." I wanted to tell him the truth, that I had given them that home, that I had tried to protect him from exactly this kind of instability. But I knew his mother had already rewritten the story. The police handed Melissa the formal order. After 2 hours of tension and muttered arguments, she finally handed over the keys. As she passed me, my mother grabbed my arm. Her grip was stronger than I expected. "I regret giving birth to a cold-hearted daughter like you." For a moment, I couldn't breathe, but I didn't respond, because if I opened my mouth, I might shatter like that watch again. 6 months passed. The house was repaired and rented out at market value. The damage Melissa caused before leaving barely covered the first month's rent. I focused on work, long nights, big projects. I flew to Vancouver twice for the resort design review. The ocean air there felt cleaner, simpler. The silence in my life was heavy, but peaceful. And then, 3 months after the eviction, my watchmaker called. "Ms. Young," Mr. Bernstein said warmly, "I've done everything possible. It's restored." When I picked up the Omega, the glass was new, polished, clear. But the case still held faint scratches. Scars. Just like me. I paid $2,800 for the restoration. Worth every cent. Because it wasn't about the money. It was about reclaiming something that had been deliberately broken. I wore it the day I signed the final Vancouver contract. Grandpa would have smiled. Easter came and went without me attending dinner. Mother's Day, too. My parents called occasionally. My mother's voice remained sharp. "You can't hold on to bitterness forever. Family is everything," I answered calmly. Family should not destroy each other. Silence followed. Then the line would disconnect. I told myself it was over. I was wrong. It happened on a Monday evening. I had just parked in my garage when I saw someone standing near my gate. For a split second, I thought I was imagining things. Then he stepped forward. Tyler. He had grown taller in 6 months. His face thinner. His clothes looked worn. He didn't meet my eyes. "Hi, Aunt Nicole," he said quietly. "Can we talk?" Every protective instinct I had warred with every boundary I'd built. But I nodded. We sat on the porch, not inside. He stared at his shoes for a long time before speaking. "Our new apartment is small," he said, "and loud. There are fights at night. Mom says it's temporary." I said nothing. He continued. "I miss my old room." That hit harder than anything else, because that room had been decorated by me. I painted the walls myself. "What do you want from me, Tyler?" I asked gently. He hesitated. "Can we move back?" "I've rented it," I said quietly. He nodded like he expected that. Then he looked up, eyes full of hope. "Mom says if you give us $1,500 a month, we could move somewhere better, closer to my old school." There it was. The script, the numbers, the strategy. I studied him carefully. "Did your mom tell you to ask me this?" He froze, then quickly said no. I raised an eyebrow. He broke eye contact. After a few seconds, he whispered, "She said you'd feel bad if I asked." There it was again. Guilt. Weaponized. I exhaled slowly. "I won't send your mom $1,500. His eyes widened. "Then you don't care about me?" That one hurt. I reached into my wallet and pulled out $200. "This is for you," I said, "for school supplies, or whatever you need personally, not for your mom." He hesitated before taking it. His hand trembled slightly. "Tell your mom something for me," I added. "Using you to get money is wrong, even if it's family." He looked conflicted, embarrassed, angry, sad. When he walked down the driveway, I noticed something. A familiar Honda Civic parked far down the street. Engine running. Melissa. Waiting. Watching. Tyler got into the passenger seat. The car drove off without stopping. That night, I sat in my living room staring at the watch on my wrist. The scratches caught the light. The amount Tyler asked for, $1,500, was nothing compared to my income. I could send it easily. But would it ever stop? Would Melissa learn anything? Or would she simply teach Tyler that persistence and guilt eventually crack every boundary? I thought about paying the school directly, or setting up a trust, or hiring someone to tutor him independently. There were ways to help him without giving Melissa control. Because despite everything, I didn't hate Tyler. He was a child raised inside manipulation, and I feared what he might become if no one showed him a different way. But I also feared what I might become if I let myself be used again. I sat there for hours, looking at the repaired Omega, remembering Grandpa's words. Time is the most precious thing you own. And now I had to decide. Was helping Tyler an investment in his future, or another crack in my boundary? For 3 nights, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw 2 versions of the future. In one, Tyler grew up resentful, convinced his aunt abandoned him when he needed help. In the other, he grew up believing guilt and manipulation always worked. Both terrified me. On Thursday evening, I called someone I hadn't leaned on enough these past months. Daniel. My boyfriend had stayed mostly in the background through all of this. Not because he didn't care, but because I kept telling him I could handle it. He answered on the second ring. "Hey," he said softly. "You sound tired." "I am." We met at his apartment that night. I hadn't told him every detail before, not the way my mother's voice still echoed in my head, not the way Tyler's words, "You're the worst person in the world," replayed at random moments. Daniel listened without interrupting. When I finished, he didn't immediately give advice. He took my hand. "Nicole," he said quietly, "helping someone doesn't mean removing consequences." I looked at him. "If you send your sister $1,500 every month, what are you teaching her?" "That I'll eventually fold." "And Tyler?" I swallowed. "That manipulation works." Daniel nodded. "But if you help Tyler in a way that builds him up instead of bailing Melissa out, that's different." I leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. "I was thinking about paying his school directly," I admitted, "or setting up something that Melissa can't touch." Daniel's thumb brushed lightly over my wrist, over the faint scratches on my restored Omega. "You rebuilt that watch," he said. "You didn't pretend it was never broken. You fixed it carefully, strategically. You didn't hand it back to the person who smashed it." His words settled into me. Carefully, strategically, not emotionally. The next morning, I called Attorney Peterson again. "I want to create a structured education fund," I said. "Restricted, direct payments only, no cash transfers." She paused, then replied, "That's very doable." We drafted it within a week. The terms were clear. I would pay Tyler's tuition directly to the school. I would fund approved extracurricular programs directly. No money would pass through Melissa. Any attempt to harass or pressure me would terminate the arrangement immediately. All communication regarding the fund would go through legal channels. When the documents were ready, I requested a meeting. Melissa insisted we meet at our parents' house. Of course she did. I arrived precisely at 6 p.m. Mom opened the door with tight lips. Melissa was already seated in the living room, arms crossed. Tyler sat beside her, silent. Dad stood near the window, hands clasped behind his back. I placed the folder on the coffee table. "I'm not giving you $1,500 a month," I said calmly. Melissa's jaw tightened. "I knew it," she snapped. "You just want control." I ignored the bait. "I am willing to pay Tyler's tuition directly, and approve programs. Nothing else." Tyler looked up. Hope flickered in his eyes. Melissa leaned forward, scanning the document. "What is this?" she demanded. "Terms," I replied. "You don't receive money. You don't ask Tyler to ask me for money. If you attempt manipulation again, it ends." Her face reddened. "You don't trust me?" I held her gaze steadily. "No." Silence filled the room. Mom scoffed. "You're humiliating your sister with paperwork." "I'm protecting myself with paperwork," I corrected. Melissa flipped through the pages angrily. "This makes me look like a criminal." "No," I said softly. "Your actions did that." Tyler's fingers tightened around the edge of the couch. Finally, Melissa threw the folder back onto the table. "So you'll pay for school but not help us live somewhere better?" "I am helping Tyler," I replied. "If you want to move, that's your responsibility." For a second, I thought she would refuse. But then Tyler whispered something. "Mom, I want to stay at my school." Melissa froze. I saw it then. Not love. Not gratitude. Calculation. If she rejected this, she'd be the one denying him stability. After a long pause, she grabbed a pen. "Fine," she muttered. "But don't think this makes you a hero." She signed. Tyler looked at me like he didn't know what to say. Dad finally spoke. "Nicole, this is fair." Mom shot him a glare, but she stayed silent. For once. As I stood to leave, Tyler followed me to the door. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up." His words caught me off guard. I crouched slightly so we were eye level. "I didn't give up on you," I said. "I just won't be used." He nodded slowly. I don't know how much he truly understood. But I saw something different in his eyes. Not hatred, not manipulation, just confusion mixed with growth. Outside, the evening air felt lighter than it had in months. When I got into my car, I looked at my wrist. The omega gleamed under the fading sunlight.
The scratches were still there. They always would be.
My relationship with my parents remained distant. Family dinners continued without me.
Mom's calls became less frequent.
Dad texted occasionally. Short messages about the weather, about small things. I responded politely. Melissa never apologized. I stopped expecting her to. But Tyler's tuition receipts began arriving through Margaret's office. Straightforward. Clean. No drama attached. And for now, that was enough. 6 months ago, a hammer shattered a watch and exposed everything rotten beneath our family's surface. Today, the watch ticks steadily again. Not flawless, but functional. Just like me. I've learned something my grandfather tried to teach me long ago. Time isn't just precious. It's selective.
You choose who gets it.
You choose how it's spent. And sometimes loving someone doesn't mean rescuing them. Sometimes it means drawing a line they can't cross. As for Tyler, I don't know what kind of man he'll become, but at least now he's seeing that boundaries exist and that they matter.